Welcome to Local 24 this week. I'm Richard Ransom. We are here every Sunday at 9 a.m. and 10:35 p.m. to bring you the real story behind the big stories. And there's no bigger story right now than this pandemic. Hospitals are describing the current surge as their darkest days. There's a shortage of ambulances. Pediatric cases are among the highest in the country, all because too many people will not get vaccinated. Also today, we'll talk about the fight over federal funds. Memphis finds itself with $161 million in COVID relief money to spend, and that's where things get interesting. And shifting population. New census data for Shelby County shows significant declines in some groups, huge increases I should say, in others, and we're going to break it down for you. But first, let me introduce my panel. Local 24 News reporter Brad Broders and political consultant Susan Adler Thorp joining me as we start first with this topic of COVID-19 in the Mid-South. And Brad, I'm going to start with you on this because I know you've been pretty much our point man for covering this virus and all its development since the beginning. And you, as we record this on a Friday afternoon, just attended a news conference with the folks at Methodist, and they described a pretty dire situation, repeating what the folks at Baptist have said as well. I mean, there is a real concern in the metro area hospitals today.
Certainly, Richard. Methodist is only 9 beds off of setting a new record high that they set previously in January throughout the Methodist system. And the doctor who is in the Olive Branch Hospital in the Methodist system really offering some stark warnings today. You said he was mentioning darkest hours, darkest days ahead. He's concerned not only about the hospitals being inundated, he's concerned about broader overall care. He acknowledged that with the situation right now, the overwhelming amount of COVID patients, the staffing situations, the staffing challenges, he's concerned that people coming in with a heart attack, a stroke, other non-COVID conditions, the care will be compromised. They talk about each day they have to kind of pick and choose which elective surgeries are more urgent for that particular day. It just gives you a sense of the strain that's not only put on by COVID, but it's affecting all other aspects of critical hospital care.
And then, of course, at Le Bonheur, we saw them making national headlines because of all the pediatric cases they have there. And Dr. Michelle Taylor also out there front and center saying she is concerned about the county's, not the county's ability to handle it, they're doing the best they can, but just the rapid rise of these Delta variant cases.
Yes, Richard, and we're certainly seeing that kids are getting more sick this go around. I mean, last week we had 2 kids who, one was heading to Le Bonheur, didn't make it, passed away from West Memphis. Another child died. We're learning about more patients that were admitted Thursday into Friday at Le Bonheur. It's a serious situation. It's a large reason why Dr. Taylor, fresh on the job just for a week or so, pushing last Friday, pushing that system-wide, all public schools, private schools, K through 12, suburban district, SCS, every student, preschools, daycares, masking up because they're concerned about the state's, largest school district and other suburban districts potentially overwhelming Le Bonheur even more. They're talking about the uptick since July, June, and into August. There's a lot of concern from Le Bonheur about not only more patients, but the severity of some of these cases they're taking in from some of these children.
And then, Susan, as if this crisis wasn't bad enough, you have the political element of all this. Dr. Taylor, once again, having to come out and say, no, I can do this legally. I have the right, not the right, but the ability to enforce this mask mandate throughout Shelby County in the schools if I choose to, if I feel that there's a threat to the public health. And then House Speaker Cameron Sexton up in Nashville comes out and says, I want a special session of the state legislature. We're going to pass legislation that won't allow local health departments to do this anymore. Then he proceeds to get the signatures of 73 Republican lawmakers to say they want the special session too, putting Governor Bill Lee really in the hot seat right now as far as will he call this special session or not. How would you characterize where things stand right now? What do you think the governor's going to do?
Well, I don't know what the governor's going to do. I mean, if I had to base it on what he's done in the recent past, I'd say he'll call this special session. But if I base it on what he did early in his term, I'd say he wouldn't. So who knows? But you say characterize this situation. To me, it's really a sad day, not just in our state's history, but in our nation's history. that the public health has to be politicized. It's, politics are everywhere, but I never ever dreamed that it would invade whether people make choices in politics, whether people should live or people should die. And I was thinking just earlier today, there are several subsets of people who won't take the vaccine. There's the anti-vaxxers. You're never going to get to them. So, that's a certain percentage of smallest percentage. And there's percentage of people who say the government can't tell me what to do. I'm not going to do what the government tells me to do, but I'm going to wait for it to be cleared by the FDA. Well, the FDA is the government, which I never quite understand. That's more on there. And then there's the other group that just says, I don't have time, or it's not important. What isn't the most revered commandment that we live under is that to love thy neighbor? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? And isn't getting the vaccine, it's not necessarily for yourself. It's so you don't infect these kids. And actually, as far as the numbers are concerned, I think we need to brace ourselves because schools just started. And I think that the virus is going to just run through the schools, even if the kids have masks or not. These are kids. They're not going to always keep these masks on. They're going to get the virus, and we're going to see cases, especially in our children, rise rapidly in the next few weeks.
Well, we talked on this.
To follow up on Susan's point, Richard, to follow up on her point, I mean, there's a lot at stake here. Thursday, I spoke with London Lamar, House rep here in Memphis. I mean, she made national attention, she was on MSNBC on Thursday evening. I interviewed her earlier in the day. She's pleading with these House members and Governor Lee to not go forward with this special session. On Wednesday, she had lost a staff photographer in his late 20s, early 30s. She was very shaken up about that, very vocal on Twitter. And there's something bigger at stake potentially if this special session is held. We're talking about the 89 rural counties and the lawmakers that represent those primarily, potentially stripping the autonomy and the power authority away from these 6 urban health departments. That would be a seismic shift in the state of Tennessee of how it does business. And it would be basically the rural lawmakers telling urban counties with their most populated, like Shelby, Nashville, Hamilton, et cetera, what to do and make their own health directives and health decisions. And I asked Dr. Taylor that yesterday. I mean, what's your response to that? And she said, right now, the law allows me to have these mandates if I see that they're necessary. And she said, right now, the trends of our kids makes those mandates necessary right now.
Yeah.
Well, Richard, I think one quick thing that the state constitution requires the 95 counties to do only 3 things. One is to educate the children, one is to provide for jail, and the other is to provide for the public health. That's in the Constitution to create these health departments. The 5-6 largest counties have the health departments. I think that I will be surprised if they call for the special session, because then you really start tinkering with the fundamentals of how the state is created under a constitution. And I don't think Governor Lee will be willing to go there.
Well, only 2 governors have called more special sessions than Governor Lee, and if he calls this one, I'm told it moves him up to number 2 in the history of Tennessee. So we'll see what happens there. Let me ask you both about what the hospitals did this week. We've talked about this on the program before. Initially, no hospitals were requiring their workers to get vaccinated. Then St. Jude was first. Then we had the VA hospitals told that they needed to do that. And then this past week, Methodist joined, Regional 1, and then finally Baptist, all requiring their workers to take part. And apparently the one reason why they weren't getting vaccinated, and we're in the case of Baptist, 40% of their workers are not vaccinated. That's their own numbers, is fear of people leaving and quitting and going somewhere else. What do you think about how they handled this? And do you think it took too long, or what do you, how do you explain why it finally did happen? Brad, you go first.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I feel in Tennessee and other southern states, I think you're seeing a kind of a shift of underneath the feet of some of these decision makers. If you're in a state where the governor and other elected leaders aren't really trying to really force things with mandates, it's being dropped to the private sector, to businesses, to grocery stores and hospital systems. And Richard, I know this has been a passionate issue for you in the last week or two about why aren't hospital systems requiring it? And as you mentioned earlier this week, the 2 hospital systems that same day announced it. My coworker, Kayla McCarthy, did a story that night about why hasn't Baptist done it. And then the next day, Baptist, I wouldn't say changed course, but joined the other hospital systems. I just feel like right now with the Delta variant is spreading so fast, the trends are going in the horrible directions right now. I just feel like there's these the force is going to have to come from some other entities other than government. If it's not going to be government, it's going to be hospital systems and private businesses.
Susan, what was your take on what the hospitals did this week?
I think that they did what they did. They should have done a month ago or 2 months ago, when perhaps in July, when all of a sudden you started seeing the uptick in the variant and the cases. But it's a terrible problem inside the hospitals, because from what I hear from friends who work there, there is a good percentage of people working in these hospitals who don't want to take this vaccine and are furious about it. I think, truthfully, if they quit, where are they going to go? Most of the hospitals, except for St. Francis, have all said you have to have the vaccine. So, for crying out loud, you work in a health department. I mean, you work in a hospital. You work around people who are dying of COVID. It seems to me that you would want to set an example for the rest of the community, that we work in the healthcare industry and we're getting vaccinated. But, who knows? Who really can guess at this stage what really motivates these people? I have no idea.
Last question. I think what really has struck me this week is the tone and the language and the words that our healthcare leaders are all using in respect to this, including our fire director, Gina Sweat. I mean, she had that news conference this week where she said, quote, "If you call for an ambulance, we may not have one to send you." That's how bad things are, and described the whole situation with paramedics and EMTs in Memphis as running on fumes. Brad, I think you were there to cover that news conference. There has been a noticeable shift, has there not, in how folks who know about these things are describing the situation?
Yeah, certainly, Richard. And, it's not hyperbole, and they are concerned about record highs. Gina Sweat, the director of the Memphis Fire Department, talking about August is on pace to have more calls for service than the data has ever reported in the history. Talking about how it's been taking an ambulance on average a half an hour longer to offload a patient into a hospital. That adds up 4-6 rides. That's 30 minutes that an ambulance isn't otherwise available to be out in the community attending to another first responder call. So across the board, hospital systems left and right this week, the fire director, things are getting bad and they're on pace. We're talking about, we are nearing records, we are nearing tough choices, we are nearing potentially having to move beds, potentially cancel more elective surgeries, not be able to tend as well to someone with a stroke. This is a serious situation, and you're hearing it from hospital systems and fire directors and other first responders.
And that's the thing, Susan. I mean, this would be a terrible time to have a heart attack or actually need emergency care, or get in a car accident and need emergency care. That's because right. You may not be able to get the kind of attention you would normally get because the strain that COVID is putting in hospitals.
There's no made to it, Richard. You won't get the kind of attention that you need. We really need to think about ambulances in our city ambulance system. That's our insurance policy. That if we get sick and we need, or our family, someone in our family gets sick, we need an ambulance and we need them right away, that they come. Your insurance policy is gone. There is no guarantee you're going to get an ambulance. You could die at home. And I send that message mostly to the people who are not vaccinated. Think of that if you get vaccinated, you can save the lives of people that you don't even know.
Yeah. And to follow up Susan's point, Richard, earlier today on Friday at the Methodist briefing, they told the public, if you need an ambulance or if you do not have an emergency that requires an ambulance, and do not go to the hospital, go to minor med, urgent care. I mean, that shows you how thin the resources are at the hospitals and how serious of a situation this is. All
right, I've got to end it there. Thanks, you guys. We'll come back. We'll talk about the budget situation, a good one that the City Council has. It's not often government is told, hey, here's $161 million. That's what the City Council has learned, and how are they going to spend it, though? That's the question. We'll be right back.
When choosing a law firm, you have so much at stake, your future, your family. Don't rely on luck and hope. Hope is not a plan. At forthepeople.com, you can see our real results. Rely on reputation and over 30 years of fighting for you. There's only one Morgan & Morgan.
That should hold it for now. What should we do?
I know what to do.
You do?
I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
You're my hero.
Saving the day is easy with CashNet USA.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need now. Home Decor Outlets is your no-credit way to enjoy today. Take all the furniture you need, only $50 down. Huge discounts on premium in-stock mattress sets from $3.99. Famous Posture Series mattresses from $18, only at Home Decor Outlets.
So we don't have very much time to spend on this YouTube, but I do want to at least give it some attention. We're talking $161 million over, after all. It's a lot of money that in COVID relief money from the feds that Memphis stands to gain. Now there's a big debate over how is that money going to be spent, and there seems to be somewhat of a rift going on between the Strickland administration and some members of the city council on that, especially concerning whether money should be spent on broadband, as the mayor wants, or do we need to spend more money in blight mitigation, weatherizing homes, and this kind of thing, which is what City Councilwoman Patrice Robinson and others seem to be advocating.
Oh, I wouldn't characterize it as a rift. I would characterize it just as this is how government works. It's a proposed budget from the administration. It goes to the council, which will get to vote on it, and there's going to be a compromise. There always is a compromise when there's a proposed budget. How it'll come out, I don't know, but each one will get a little bit of what they want. But I think you have to look at it this way, that the administration wants $30 million to provide broadband service in depressed areas of the community which need it. And Patrice Robinson certainly wants to weatherize homes and put roofs on houses, which is also very important. But broadband is the future. Broadband, it's how our children learn these days, and it's the future of our city. Plus, think of the areas of town that need broadband. I can assure you, small businesses and large businesses will not locate in areas of town that don't have broadband service. They'll be without that economic benefit. I think it's a serious situation, but it's a compromise in the making.
Brad, what are you
hearing?
hearing?
Brings up some really interesting points. It is an interesting discussion, though, of how do you revitalize, bring life back to neighborhoods. Blight easing is one opinion, but to Susan's point, Mayor Strickland told me a couple of weeks ago after he made that presentation that you have to get broadband in these areas. We saw last year with SCS how many students had Wi-Fi's and it didn't work. They didn't have internet in areas of the city. So having broadband gives kids and parents the ability to work or learn, and also help revitalize and potentially spur development in some of these most distressed parts of the city. And so the mayor did his presentation a couple of weeks ago. Now this upcoming Tuesday, it's the council's turn to really dive in and really kind of weigh in. 2 weeks ago, they kind of were more just listening. So it will be interesting to see the most vocal points that are brought out of that funding. Okay, we will stay on that. Brad, we're going to say goodbye to you. Susan's going to stay on, and I'll be joined by Mauricio Calvo with Latino Memphis when we come right back.
A wise man once said nothing was certain except death and taxes. Well, add college football to the list because DraftKings Sportsbook's latest offer is a sure thing. New customers bet at least $1 on college football and get $200 in return, no matter what. So death, taxes, and $200 to ring in college football season. Download the app now. Sign up with the promo code. Bet $1 to get 2 Ben Franklins. See what we did there? And make it rain.
Need cash? TitleMax offers 2 ways to get it. Get cash using your car title. Go to TitleMax.com, enter the car year, make, model. See how much you can get. TitleMax also offers an unsecured loan. No title required. Check out TitleMax.com when you need more cash. Check out TitleMax.com and shop us for rates. Get up to $2,500 without a car title, or up to $6,500 using your car title. And you'll say, I got my title back with TitleMax.
Get your title back with TitleMax.
See it,
Snap it, send it. We want to see all the events going on in your community, big and small. So send us your pictures, your videos to the Local 24 News app. Just click share it. See it, snap it, send it to Local 24 News.
I wanna see you stand up. I wanna feel you be proud. I wanna hear you beating heart. Live out loud. Oh.
Some interesting findings from the Shelby County numbers that have come out from the U.S. Census Bureau. We're joined now by Mauricio Calvo with Latino Memphis, and Susan Adler Thorp joins us again. Now look at these numbers, 929,000 people and change in Shelby County now. That's only an increase of 0.2% in 10 years' time. The diversity index in Shelby County, one of the strongest in the state, only after Davidson County. And that means basically, if you were to randomly pick two people in that county, what are the chances they would be of different backgrounds? And the chances of that are 61% and more in Shelby County. So let's take a closer look now as they break it down by race. Blacks make up 51% of the population in Shelby County. That's down, actually, a little more than 1%. Whites make up 34% of Shelby County's population. That's down 13% since the last census. But the biggest growth is the Hispanic and Latino population, up 49%, more than 49% in those 10 years. Hispanics and Latinos now make up 8.4% of the population. Asians also seeing a significant increase of almost 32%. They now make up 3% of Shelby County's population. So Mauricio, let me start with you on this. You actually think the numbers are probably higher, that there was, and there's a lot of merit in the argument that there might have been an undercount with this census. You think it's probably higher than that in terms of the growth in Shelby County?
Yes, Richard, Susan, I absolutely believe that the number is actually higher. What I think is important to point out, regardless of what the final number is the growth, right? The exponential growth of this population that continues to happen, not only in Shelby County, but across the country. And the reason why I think is low is over three reasons. The census had a lot of bad publicity around immigration and the Trump administration. So that didn't help. The second one is that it's complicated how you answer the ethnicity question when you first have to say you're white, non-Hispanic, or yes, white, Hispanic, so it gets confusing. And the third one is the reality is that we were in the middle of a pandemic. So some people, I mean, they struggle with counters, and some people didn't want to talk to other people. So I think all of those things pile up, just added to the fact that typically minorities do not get represented. But let's not lose focus. I mean, the main thing is that this particular population continues to grow in Memphis and across the country. And it's an uncomfortable topic, I guess, to speak about, but we know that there's a lot of fear in the Latino community here and elsewhere, especially among undocumented workers who are here. What is your read on that number, and how much of that percentage do you think are folks who are not documented in this county? I mean, I did mention that as one of the three reasons. I think it's the lesser of all the reasons why, right? I think, there's a large number of undocumented Latinos and Latinas in Memphis, but there's also a large number of American citizens and others. So I think that factors into that. I don't know if at the end of the day that will give us a significant change in percent, but it does play a role. As people are hesitant to answer government questions in general. Well, still, if we're rounding up though, if 1 in 10 people in Shelby County is Hispanic or Latino, right, is there a single representative on any form of government that you're aware of where a Latino is representing an elected office in Shelby County? Not to my knowledge. I mean, and that's really, frustrating, and it's alarming, right? I mean, imagine a city that didn't have any representation for women or for a particular race. So no elected or appointed official that I know. And although some of these things could be, well, people have to run for office, and they're the will of the public and the voters, and that takes time. Memphis continues to be seen as a black and white city. And unfortunately, many people do still vote on race lines. I'm not saying everybody, but a significant number of people do. But the second, I mean, there's some intentionality that could happen here, particularly with appointed positions at directors levels. I would push that neither the superintendent or either one of the county or the city mayor have any directors that are either not black or white. So I think there is a huge opportunity to be there, and something that with a little bit more intentionality, it can happen, whether they hire somebody local or just go out and, and recruit somebody from another city.
Well, Susan, you are the political consultant among the three of us here. What do you think would need to be done that would maybe help that along, where a population that makes up, the Hispanics making up 10% of the population but not having any elected representation? Mauricio has tried and run for office. We know other Latinos have tried too. Gabby Salinas comes to mind as well. What do you think needs to happen?
Well, I think that what Mauricio said, that a large number of the Hispanic population in Memphis is undocumented. You're not going to be able to organize. They're not going to vote, so they can't register to vote and they can't vote. So that in itself doesn't mean they shouldn't be represented, but that in itself lowers the numbers of the people who could possibly help put someone in office. There have been some good candidates, including Mauricio, for public office, but the numbers aren't there. And what I would advise is organization. And it's not easy to organize people who are not comfortable with the community in and of itself. So I think that Mauricio has a point, that I think that lobbying some of our leadership to look more seriously at Hispanic appointees in important offices, and there have been a few, but not that many. And then I think that's one way to go to build a base. But I think that it's shoe leather. It's constantly going door to door, organizations, community meetings, to get people in the Hispanic community to understand that government would benefit them. But the problem is so many of them don't want to be recognized because maybe undocumented, maybe some people are documented but have relatives who are not documented, and they just don't want to get involved. It's pretty hard to fight for a living and do that also. Yeah, right. I got to leave it there, unfortunately. We could talk about this longer, I'm sure, but I thank to both of you for being here. We'll be right back on Local 24 this week, right after this.
We buy any car. We buy any car. We buy any car. Any.
Did you know trading in your car at a dealer could cost you money? A recent study found consumers who trade in their car pay an average of $990 more. So don't trade in. Sell it to We Buy Any Car. Learn more and get your free online valuation now at WeBuyAnyCar.com.
Find out how much your car's worth at We Buy Any Car.
A short while ago, an injured worker left me a message that said, "You probably won't call me back, I'm just a nobody." Those words stunned me, and I called him right back. Nobody's a nobody, and no one deserves a better firm than you. All law firms are not the same.
Introducing our new nuggets. This time, we come in piece. 8 piece. Juicy, crispy, and delicious. Try them today and start earning points with Popeye's Rewards.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
No matter what happens, the storm eventually ends. And when the storm does end, you want to make sure that you're ready.
Kobe had the best story because he told it himself.
Superstar Kobe Bryant.
Mambas don't die.
Wednesday on ABC.
Monday.
Let their journey begin.
Think you can find better summer drama?
Both our hearts just skipped a beat, I think.
Beach, please.
Everybody loves some Demi in their life.
Bachelor in Paradise premieres Monday, 8/7 Central on ABC.
That's our time. We'll see you next week for Local 24 This Week.